Tonight, you will put your child to sleep in an isolated room. You will close the door and turn on a digital monitor. For 99% of human history, this layout was biologically impossible. An infant alone in the dark instantly triggers an ancient survival program. Your child's nervous system still remembers the safety of the tribe, because humans never evolved to raise children in total isolation. Human babies are the most defenseless creatures on the entire planet. Keeping one alive was the hardest puzzle our species ever solved. A newborn horse stands up and walks immediately after birth. A baby chimpanzee grips its mother's fur and holds on tightly. But a newborn human cannot even hold up its own head, cannot find its own food for many years. It requires constant physical contact to balance its internal systems. Of all primates on Earth, humans are born the most unfinished. And the hidden reason for this flaw is your massive brain. The human brain grows to an immense size inside the body. If it developed fully before birth, delivery would be physically impossible. So, evolution made a brilliant, calculated trade. Human infants are born with only 25% of adult brain size. A baby chimpanzee is born with 40% of its brain. This means 75% of your brain develops after birth. You grow your mind while being completely vulnerable to the world. For 300,000 years, every mother faced this difficult equation. A baby that could not cling to its parent's body. A baby that could not run away from shifting shadows. A baby that communicates its discomfort through loud, piercing cries. In a wild world, that crying was not just a signal. It was a massive radar beacon for external environmental dangers. So, how did our ancestors keep these fragile infants moving forward? The answer is something modern society has almost completely dismantled. Ancient humans never attempted to perform this monumental task alone. Anthropologists argue that humans are unique cooperative breeders. We evolved to raise our young as a collective network. Without the shared energy of others, our species would face extinction. We did not survive because individual parents were incredibly strong. We survived because our ancestors learned to share the heavy weight. The scientific data on primitive groups is absolutely staggering. In traditional African forest communities, infants are constantly held. A baby is held by an average of 14 different people daily. The child moves from one pair of supportive arms to another. This transfer happens roughly 8 times every single hour. The biological mother holds the infant only 40% of the time. The remaining 60%, the child is resting with others. Aunts, older siblings, grandmothers, and supportive neighbors protect the baby. In these ancient groups, fathers stay within arm's reach constantly. They spend nearly half of their daily cycle holding the infant. This is not a modern parenting trend or a temporary habit. This is the baseline setting of the human family structure. The ancient baby was never left alone on the floor. The baby was always touching a warm, living body. And there was a vital evolutionary reason for this setup. Millions of years ago, humans lost the thick body hair. Infants could no longer mechanically cling to their mother's fur. So, parents invented the very first survival technology. They fashioned functional baby carriers out of animal hides and fibers. Ancient burial sites reveal decorated slings used 10,000 years ago. But carrying the child was not just about simple transportation. It was a sophisticated method to calm the infant's nervous system. When an infant is held against a chest, its heart rate drops. Its breathing instantly stabilizes, and the crying fades into silence. In the wild, a silent infant is an infant that successfully avoids detection. Your child still runs this ancient biological program right now. When you pick up a crying newborn and hold it to your chest, the sudden calm you observe is not just a psychological comfort. It is a 300,000-year-old safety reflex operating inside its body. The nervous system believes it is being carried away from environmental threats. But constant physical proximity was only the first half of the equation. Our ancestors also had to solve the complex problem of nutrition. And the ancient methods would make most modern parents completely freeze. Mothers provided natural nutrition for a minimum of 2 to 3 years. In many traditional foraging groups, this process lasted 4 years or longer. This was not a modern lifestyle preference or a temporary choice. It was the only functional option available in the primitive environment. There were no synthetic formulas, sterilized bottles, or measuring cups. There was no clean water safe enough for an unfinished infant digestive system. Natural milk was the only sterile, nutritionally complete resource available. And it carried vital antibodies that built defenses against external infections. This intensive feeding cycle also performed another critical biological function. It naturally suppressed the mother's ovulation cycle for several years. This mechanism acted as nature's organic birth control system. Having 2 completely helpless infants simultaneously in the Paleolithic era was impossible. The extreme physical cost would rapidly overwhelm the entire family structure. and when the child finally required more substance than milk. There were no processed baby foods or soft cereals in boxes. Our ancestors relied on a universal method called premastication. The mother or grandmother chewed the tough food items first. They broke down the fibers using their own saliva and enzymes. Then they transferred the soft substance directly into the baby's mouth. This process delivered active digestive enzymes and immune cells straight to the child. Many anthropologists believe this practice is the actual origin of human kissing. It began not as a romantic gesture, but as survival technology. And then, there is the incredible evolutionary story of the grandmothers. This is the unexpected twist that modern science never predicted. Most animal species die shortly after their reproductive capability ends. Evolution rarely maintains a body that can no longer pass on genes. But human women live for decades after the onset of menopause. Anthropological studies on African hunter-gatherer groups finally solved this mystery. Researchers observed that postmenopausal women are the hardest working foragers. They spend long hours digging tough, deep tubers from dry ground. They collect dense nutrients that young children could never harvest alone. And they use these gathered resources to feed their expanding grandchildren. This vital support allowed mothers to have another child much sooner, because the grandmother was successfully managing the nutrition of the previous one. Scientists formally define this mechanism as the grandmother hypothesis. Your long potential lifespan exists because of this specific prehistoric strategy. An older woman digging roots under the sun was the safety net. She was the absolute difference between a child thriving and starving. Menopause is not a biological breakdown or a system failure. It is one of the most successful reproductive strategies ever evolved. And here is the exact realization that should unsettle modern parents. For 300,000 years, no human ever raised a child alone. It was always a fluid collective, a non-stop network of hands. There was always someone to pass the heavy weight to. You had support when you could no longer hold your eyes open. The average mother had between 5 and 15 people actively helping. Every single hour of the day, the weight was evenly distributed. Today, in most industrialized societies, that supportive number is 2. And very often, that number is exactly 1. You find yourself sitting in an apartment at 3 a.m. alone. You hold a screaming infant, and absolutely no one is coming down the path. The immense exhaustion you experience at night is not a personal failure. It is the natural consequence of trying to work against your biology. For thousands of generations, individual parenting simply did not exist. The human body was structurally designed to operate within a tribe. The modern isolation of the family unit is a very recent experiment. And your ancient survival radar reads this quietness as an alert. Let's look closer at the true architecture of modern society. The collective network that protected your ancestors was carefully dismantled. The community structure was replaced by a highly organized commercial engine. Today, you must manage every single resource on your own strength. You must purchase the support that used to be provided naturally. The system deliberately thrives on your constant fatigue and pressure, because an isolated, exhausted parent becomes the absolute ideal consumer. When you are operating on empty, your logical brain drops. You stop analyzing long-term strategies and look for quick relief. You buy the digital monitors, the automated swings, and expensive gadgets. Industry turns the ancient cooperative breeding model into a paid subscription. They isolate your family to sell you the substitute for a tribe. Think about the transport reflex that calms your screaming child. Modern advice tells you to let the infant manage it alone. They label a basic evolutionary reflex as a temporary behavior problem. They force you to fight the very instincts that kept us alive. Consider the prehistoric grandmothers working hard under the hot sun. Their vital role has been reduced to occasional weekend visits. The ancient transmission of biological protection was completely broken. The structural weight was shifted onto a single pair of arms. You are not losing the game of life because you lack strength. You are just playing a game where the natural rules were replaced. The immense loneliness is your body screaming for its collective pack. It is a biological system showing a critical error under pressure. Every single modern parent is running a pre-designed economic algorithm. You struggle in silence because society normalized this extreme isolation. They made you believe that asking for constant help is weakness. But evolutionarily, the answer to solo parenting was always no. One human being was never meant to hold the entire weight alone. We survived the harsh prehistoric world because we shared the energy. We moved forward because a network of hands was always there. The next time you sit in the quiet dark at 3 a.m., do not judge your mind for feeling completely broken and empty. Look at the invisible architecture that removed your protective tribe. Remember the ancient clockwork reflex still operating inside your child. Your infant is just trying to find the safety of the collective. And your exhaustion is the proof that you are entirely human. You are trying to rebuild a village inside a single apartment. The system wants you to think that you are the problem. They want you to blame your character, your habits, your schedule. Because as long as you look inward, you don't see the cage. You don't notice the commercial trap that monetizes your isolation. The modern world built the walls that keep you completely separated. And then they charged you a premium to help you breathe. True strength was never about surviving the dark in total solitude. True survival was about the shared heartbeat of the ancient group. The data from our deep past is a message to your brain. You were never meant to carry this heavy stone by yourself. The ancient mother had 15 people standing by her side daily. You have a glowing digital monitor and a quiet closed door. The contrast is not a failure of your personal love. It is the industrial tax on the modern human experience. Your body remembers the ancient code of absolute shared survival. And it is finally time to understand what the trap actually is.